So, I'm so happy to be back with these two ladies, the gorgeous Jamie Saleh and Brice Watson from Esoteric Atlanta. We are back to do our last in the series of the Fifth Agreement, a practical guide to self-mastery. But before we get into the juicy stuff, Jamie, how are you doing?
Loaded question again, Catherine. I think it's energies are, what did you say, Brice? Wobbly. I feel very wobbly. I feel some days really fantastic. I'm thriving. I feel great. I can visualize the future I want. And then there's other days I'm just like, take me, please. Take
abort mission.
Abort mission. Kind of get me out of here. But you know what? I just keep focusing on the good that's happening. And of course, I've shared with you and the public already now my new project with Theo Fleury in Canada here, which is going to be our new news network. So we're getting started. We're excited.
Somebody left a comment on your Twitter. And it made me emotional because, and I'm paraphrasing what they said, but they said, who would have ever thought that winning a gold in the Olympics would not be the highlight of your life?
That was beautiful.
What an incredible comment to leave to Jamie, that winning that gold medal was not the greatest achievement of your life.
And then I get what an embarrassment and shame you are to Canada. I get both sides.
Listen, my family and my friends in Atlanta think it's so cool. Look at her.
She's so great.
My friends and family think it's so cool that I have a friend who's a gold medalist from the Olympics. So you are, and I've told you, Jamie, God has had something. The Olympics were just a warm up for you.
You know what? I heard this from a nurse the other day. She said to me, she called me and she goes, Jamie, you had to have that Olympic experience to become known for this time. And I just started bawling. I was like, oh my gosh, you're the third person that's told me this, because I told her about you girls and the conversations that we've had and the difficulty it has been speaking out. And she said the same thing you did. So I'm so grateful for all of you. You keep me going. And I don't know. You know what? It's because I've told you this 100 times. It is literally because of people like you that we've created this beautiful community to support each other and hold each other up, because, that's ultimately for me what this is really about: uniting, coming together, holding each other up, stop listening to the noise, right? Like Catherine, there's a lot of noise.
There's a lot of noise and things, and have I been wobbly this week?
Yeah. Well, how are you girls doing? How are you girls?
Well, I'm just traveling around the United States, as Shanti said, causing trouble. Just, this is esoteric Connecticut, because I am still in Connecticut. Awesome. And we went to Salem, which that'll be an interesting deep dive. And we did Plymouth Rock, and we're probably going to be going into New York, back into New York. We just take the train in, and doing some other things around this area. There's some very interesting things in this area that shit's not adding up. And I told you girls before we started filming, at this point, I'm not really super interested in intel anymore, because I don't even think the proper intel is going to be released anyway. So I'm kind of going back to my roots, and that's researching and looking into things. And it's fun. And it's something that we can all, as I present research, we can all look in it together and be like, what's the true story here? What's our true history? What's our true lineage? Because from what I can tell, they have a lot to hide from us, because we are very powerful and we are very special. Mm-hmm. And I keep encouraging people, just look in your backyard, start to question things in your own backyard. You have that right. You have that cognitive discernment. You have that brain and that those critical thinking skills for a reason. And that's the biggest lesson, right? For so many generations now, we've just listened to the experts, or, if someone says this happened, we just believe it happened because someone said it happened, which now we're learning with everything that we have to, and that's kind of getting into what we're talking about. We have to have discernment. We have to listen to our gut, and skepticism isn't bad. There is such a thing as called toxic positivity. And that's big in the spiritual world, where people get caught in this loop of talks. They're not skeptical. They don't, but that's important. That skepticism is something that God gave us in order to keep us grounded and keep us understanding what truth really is.
Yeah, and I've been very wobbly this week, because a lot of things have come to fruition which I did know, but they've become very obvious now. And it's like we used to call my dad, when he was alive, Wise Owl, because he knew everything and he was very unreactive to things. And I felt like I've been sitting up on that perch on the tree with him, watching it all happening, with a huge new realization of what it all comes down to is hurt people. But we're going to be talking about that today, because I think it's really, really relevant. I'm just going to read out, because how I've been feeling is so timely to what we're going to be talking about today. You're all saying. So folks, this is the 5th one in this series. I will put the playlist below the video, so please go back and watch the others, because it will put it into, we've discussed the 4 agreements. We've already discussed be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. And today we're going to be discussing be skeptical, but learn to listen. Don't believe yourself or anybody else. Use the power of doubt to question everything you hear. Is it really the truth? Listening to the intent behind the words, and then you will understand the real message. So who wants to kick off on that one?
Well, it's my favorite quote. It's the Aristotle quote. It's a sign of an intelligent mind when you can entertain an idea without accepting it. When you can entertain something, but always keep that skepticism. As we say down here in the South, I don't know if this is a global saying, but we say take everything with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt.
Do you know what I find interesting, though? We've been conditioned or programmed to not be skeptical, like you just said earlier, Brice, to trust the experts, to trust the gurus, to believe what they're telling us. Like, I can't tell you how many people have said to me, even with the media, when I was trying to make them aware that we're being lied to, like literally daily. They're like, how could you think the media, like the news, is lying to us? I said, yes. Well, who are we supposed to believe? Like, that has been the biggest comment that I've had to me back a year ago when I was trying to help people wake up or see this, but they just blindly want to believe that whatever they're being told is the truth.
Well, a lot of people
don't criticize it.
No.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't taught how to research. I have found this as of late. I've been interacting with people in the comment section, and it hit me that people don't actually know how to research, because we're not taught how to research in school. We're taught how to memorize and regurgitate. So
and
people
use Google.
Yes. Which, I mean, come on, people. Like,
Google's only going to tell us what they want us to know.
And I found a book. I put it on we were in Putnam, Connecticut, in an antique shop, and there was a history book from 1883. And I couldn't read it until I opened it because I had it sealed. Y'all. What we were taught in the 80s and the 90s of the 1900s was not what they were taught in the 80s and the 90s of the 1800s about this country. And it's unbelievable. And so that's what, when you look, we're just relying on Google when you're not comparing and contrasting things, and using, again, part of research is using that critical thinking, which is skepticism, which is comparing different people and seeing, and then drawing, heaven forbid, you draw your own conclusions. Heaven forbid, people don't want to, they just want to quote other people. They don't want to say, well, this doesn't feel right to me, and here's why.
Isn't it interesting? Because we right from the word go, Jamie, you and I are we're all mothers to 4-legged creatures, but you and I are mothers to 2-legged creatures as well. And when you have your children, and it's tradition to tell them about Father Christmas or Santa Claus, whatever you want to call them, and the tooth fairy and things like this. So we're taught to lie to our children for their best interest. And we also, but when they find out about the tooth fairy and Father Christmas, they realize that they've lied, and they're not traumatized for life by it. They then realize that there's another level of understanding, and they move on. And similarly, as often you see parents, particularly grandparents or people even with their animals, who are obsessed by giving treats or rewards, which are the most unhealthy things that you could give your children. So we're now in a mad, mad world where if your child's been good, we say, oh, I'll get you an ice cream or a packet of crisps or some chocolate as a reward. So we're rewarding them with toxicity. Imagine if we said, I'll give you a lovely fresh squeezed juice for a thing. You know, imagine how different that word would be. And one of the things, just before this talk, I was going through flipping in and out of the 5th chapter. And I think it's fascinating because yes, we've been taught these things, but you reach a stage when you move into adulthood, whenever that might be. For any men watching, we know it's later for you. But you know, in all seriousness, everyone has that awakening movement where they stop listening to their parents, where they stop listening to their children. So if you're selectively deciding to believe, it comes down to me, that accountability, that it's a choice that you're choosing to believe in it. Because there's not a single teenager, I think, on the earth that sits there and listens to everything their mother and father says. Do you see what I mean? You know,
yeah,
so
like at what age is it? What age is it that we start just believing everything we're told and believing everything that everyone says? It's kind of like I used to say to my family, at what age do you guys start listening to country music or no, talk radio on the radio? They went from like listening to like regular fun music to talk radio. I go, what is it, 40?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, like, because you're right. Like you look at teenagers, a lot of them would be seen as rebellious because they challenge things. But also in school, it's been indoctrinated or put into our school systems that we do have to follow the rules and you have to listen. You don't question things. You don't challenge the narrative in school. Like that's what's been slowly happening over time. And you're seeing more. But our generation, we still, like, there were lots of kids that were like, raise their hand and challenge something, but now it's not really seeming to be allowed. So,
and I have a theory
what I'm seeing
this too, it comes down to the Federal Reserve as well. When I was a child, and I'm 39, I'm like middle-aged, I'm not that old. It wasn't that long ago that I was in school. I mean, like,
Brice, you're a baby if we live till we're 300.
Listen, I'm thinking about all the periods we're gonna have to go through if we live to 300. Like, we're still in middle school.
Yeah.
But we still have cramps and stuff. But I was thinking about when I was in school, when I was a kid in school, we would have like yearly testing, but it wasn't that often. It was maybe like once or twice a year, and that was it. Kids today, they go, at least in the United States, they're constantly being tested. Well, what is testing? Especially if you're looking at stuff like the SATs and the government state testing, it's mostly memorization and regurgitation. So they're teaching kids to memorize and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat from very, very, very
jump in here. I'm going to be rude and interrupt, which contradicts what I'm going to go about listening. But the reason I'm going to be, because we use all these things, and I think they're just excuses, because the audience we're talking to are not the children. The audience we're predominantly talking to are our age.
But I think that feeds into, though, because I see like my sister with her kids and gotta get prepared for testing. And so I feel like it's kind of this slippery slope of like it almost through osmosis, like
my cat, sorry.
That wasn't a demon in her room. It was her cat.
Oh, sorry.
I do know what you mean, Brice. It's just the fact that the people, if you look at who's taking a lot of these decisions, yes, we have got teenagers that are taking decisions that surprise us, because we would, back in our day, they'd be the rebellious ones, and they seem to have that. So I completely get that. But also a lot of people who are Jamie's age or my age who haven't been through so much of that. You know, as you say, we did used to challenge and push the boundaries when we were younger. They're still in that compliance stage. And I think, you know, one of the things that I've really, really noticed is have you girls ever done a book club with friends?
No, I never have.
No, I know my mom did it. I know about book club, but I guess I kind of do book clubs on my channel, but.
Exactly. But isn't it so interesting? So you could get 10 people who are all really good friends reading the same book or listening to the same podcast, and all of them will pull out different things, because when we bring in information, it doesn't matter however many people say the same information, same things, as we've all talked about before, it goes through our own filter. And that to me is the crux of everything, because I think it comes back to the self-accountability, where when you realize that everything that you're listening to, reading, watching is going through your
Impacting.
future, the filter, you are going to see it that way. And then human nature is to sort of seek out people that agree with you. You know, because you need that lovely group, that tribe that you feel safe with.
Yeah. And we were talking about, I mean, we even see this in the truther community too. It's not just, we're not just talking about people who are indoctrinated by, you know, the flu, we'll say, or this, you know, or anything like that, or you know, all the stuff that's being put out there as the narrative, which includes she's the star. But we see it in the truther. I see, if I step back and watch, I see so many people in the community replacing CNN and the hysteria around that with the truther community. And it's really, and I know I've been talking a lot on my channel about, and fortunately for me, I have had the experience of spending a lot of time in India, studying a lot of scripture, writing papers on it, studying with a lot of teachers to understand that the spiritual, the old ancient ideas of spiritual path. And if you read the Yoga Sutras, it's very clear that things like channeling, all that kind of stuff, we all have the ability to do that. It's just like walking. We learn how to walk. And so it's not necessarily considered spiritual. To channel is not spiritual. It's just like us talking right now. It's just something humans have the ability to do. What is real spirituality is really diving into yourself and working on yourself and finding your own. And what I'm seeing happening is people aren't using that skepticism. They aren't using that discernment, the hysteria that they had in one reality, they're now bringing to another reality, and they're falling for everything. And the stories are getting wilder and wilder and wilder. And trust me, the truth is a lot wilder than what they told us. I understand that there's crazy shit that we're having to go through and understand about who we really are. But we were talking beforehand, I don't watch a lot anymore because it's too much. And I sit there and I think this is crazy. This has gotten to the point of derangement. And we're just following. And you know, Catherine, we've talked about this a lot. When we post our videos, if somebody, or it's not just us, if somebody on the video says one thing that someone disagrees with, they go off the chain sometimes. And it's like they can't watch us anymore because we said one thing, which I don't care if someone has. I know the three of us, probably there's many things we probably disagree on. Doesn't faze me at all, because that's not, we're all still learning. And so I think that, and I know we talked beforehand and about the whole like new financial system coming in. Some people are just sitting around waiting for it. And without healthy skepticism, we lose discernment. And when we lose discernment, we lose critical thinking skills. And if we lose critical thinking skills, we lose our spirituality. We lose our sovereignty. And so this is one of the most important things I think that we all have to sit in and realize during this horrific, cool, I don't know, timeline that we all agreed to be here on, is finding what you actually believe and what you don't believe, and what is truth to you. And that requires you being skeptical. It requires you being skeptical of the three of us. You know, I'm okay with that, you know?
Yeah. Well, the listening part was always very difficult for me. I wasn't really a great listener until I did the healing work this last year. And I completely admit that. I'm more of a doer and a talker and a fixer, right? Like that was kind of how I've always been. It's like, if there's a problem, I want to resolve it. And so the listening part was really powerful for me because I got a lot of downloads, you know, when I was just sitting in that, because I used to, in my coaching program, part of what I would share with my clients and encourage them to do was to get quiet, which is listening, you know. And I did the meditations back then, but I have a whole newfound appreciation for really listening. Because I mean, whether you have faith, so whether it's, you know, in prayer or meditation, but just being quiet, getting calm, still, quiet, whatever, and actually listen, you get a lot of information there from, and also what I found, and I'm totally admitting this, was so uncomfortable for me was being quiet. Because I'm not a quiet personality, it was really uncomfortable to actually, like you talked about the shadow work, Brice, earlier before we started this. And I was like, that was so uncomfortable for me. And I'm not done, but it was just like, it felt so icky. And I was like, felt even nauseous some days. And I had frustration and even anger. And I was just like, but it was just this layers kind of peeling off of me, right? We're purging all of that. But I had to get quiet. I had to start listening. And again, it's not always very comfortable, but powerful.
And as someone that makes sense to me because of what you did for a living, you were a Olympia, but you were also a performer.
Yeah.
So that became your nature to be the fixer, to be the one to do, and then to have the opposite. That makes sense. That makes total sense. And
I've always been a fixer as well, and I'd love to have been an Olympian, but I'm not, and I don't think I'm ever going to be, unless they can do. What can we think that I could actually enter if they invent some new weird thing? But I think, don't you think it's really interesting with the listening ladies that when you really listen, it's the intent behind the listening. I mean, one of the things that says here is it's all about the intent behind the words, and you can listen to something with a view to take what resonates and leave what doesn't, and it doesn't have to trigger you. Nothing you listen to has to trigger you if you go in with an intent to question everything. But if you go in with an intent to find fault, you will find fault in everything and everyone.
Yeah, I'll use an example. I've been laughing on my videos saying our history is fairy tales because that's what we're finding with, and I love history. I know dates. I mean, that I never had to study for a history test because honestly, history was fascinating because it happened to humans. Like that was what was fascinating to me. And for me to say it's all bullshit, let's go try to peel back the layers and have fun with this. And I'm saying history. And somebody in my comments was like, well, you shouldn't call it fairy tales because we know fairy tales. And I was like, this is just making a mountain out of a molehead hill. You are just looking for something to pick at.
That's happening on social media. Yeah.
Everybody knows what I mean when I say we know our fairy tales are more real than our history, but everybody knows what I mean when I say our history or fairy tales, it's fake basically. And so, and that we all know this. So yes. And when people do that though, what I know from trust me, I mean, I am, for every teacher out there, you are your greatest student because you've been through it. And when we project, when we do shit like that, basically, it's us not wanting to sit with whatever is uncomfortable for us.
Exactly.
Because we've been trained to think that uncomfortable is bad.
Yes.
But uncomfortable is not bad. Uncomfortable is growth. And even the Bhagavad Gita talks about, you basically paraphrasing, that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
I always say that.
I mean, Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, again, I'm paraphrasing, something that as an American, I think all Westerners can probably, and with our the overriding Western culture, he tells them, like, do the work because you love the work, not for the fruits of your labor. Don't do the work because of the fruits of your labor. Do it because you love it. And if we look at that way, that we have to get uncomfortable because we actually love it and it actually makes us grow, that skepticism comes in. How would the world change at that point if we all took that accountability?
One of the biggest listening moments I got, ladies, and you know about this, was January. I was sitting in my house doing my meditation and I was told it's go time. But if I hadn't done the work, go time meaning speak out, it's time to go. You're ready. Because I had healed a lot. I'd gotten past a lot of the struggles that I was going through with gaslighting and ridiculing and shaming. And it was like, nope, your skin is thick enough. Go. Your backbone is strong enough. But if I wasn't doing the work and I wasn't getting still and listening, I wouldn't have gotten that. I would still be spinning in my, my old belief system and my pain and my trauma.
Such a good point. And it's listening with respect. I think respect has really, for me,
kindness, loving,
big time. And again, a lot of people blame the younger generations, but I'm looking at how the older generations behave. People and children do what you do, not what you say. As a parent, we can blame teachers as much as we like, but we should be the biggest influence on our children, whether they're two-legged or four-legged. And I think this is the things, is it's very hard because so many people don't respect themselves because they feel some sort of shame for being allowed to be fooled or falling into lifestyles, things, whatever it might be, aspects of their life that they don't like about themselves. And one of the things when I was flicking through this book again that really hit home, and I'd like to ask both of you two about, is the fact that humans are the only species that carries that blame and blames themselves time and time and time again. So if you see dogs having a fight or a scrap, it's all out and it's hideous to watch, but then they're not holding a grudge about it. You know, they walk away. Now, they might react to that same dog in a negative way when they see it again, but when they're not with that dog, they're happy as Larry, and they're not sitting there saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have done that. But they're reacting to the trigger. But as humans, we might make what we perceive as a mistake, or someone else might perceive we've made a mistake 10 years ago, or some trauma might have happened to us 30 years ago. And we choose to keep bringing it up and up because we don't know how to let it go in the same way that animals do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's the beautiful thing I know that humans do, that if you have the same issue that's coming up in your life over and over again, it's literally your higher self pointing out where you still have an open wound. So it's like if you, and I was guilty of this, I did this for all of my 20s into my early 30s. I would date one bad man after the next bad man after the next bad man, and I know it comes from my daddy issues, all that kind of stuff, but the boy would change, the outfit would change, but I was the common denominator. So for me, it had to get to the point where I almost lost my life one night with my ex, and I had to call night. It was bad. It was really bad. But that was one of the best things that happened to me, because it got so bad that it put me into trauma therapy. And when I got myself into trauma therapy, that is when I was able to eventually go, oh, I'm actually inviting this in because I have a wound that I need to heal. And this is my higher self, my knowing self being like, we have to show you this until you actually take the Neosporin and put it on the womb and heal it, instead of just picking the scab off and then hiding it. And so sometimes when humans repeat behaviors, it's because their higher self, their knowing self, is trying to say, listen, there's a part of you that needs to heal, and you deserve it.
Yeah.
You deserve to be healed. And for me, I always say that, I mean, I don't regret what happened to me at all, because it brought me to a place of so much healing, and so much wisdom came through that healing. I still make mistakes, but at least now I have the wisdom, because in therapy, you are talking a lot, but in trauma therapy, you're also listening a lot too, especially when they do EMDR therapy, when they do these other types of modalities to work with your brain, to get your brain to start to calm down a little bit. And especially if it's a trauma response. But yeah, if we're too busy running and too busy not observing ourselves, and how you talk about listening to yourself. Like you said, Jamie, I had that with India. One day I just heard, and everybody knows Magdalene speaks to me, but I just heard, go to India, learn yoga. And so that's what I did. And it's listening to that too, and listening to yourself. How many people actually listen to themselves? They're too busy listening to other people and not themselves.
Well, that's what I mean. Like with the listening, for me, it's more important to listen to your higher self or source than listening to everybody else around you. Having that, your own self-discernment, and your results, your answer isn't going to necessarily be the same as everybody else's, but that doesn't matter. My big moment with the trauma stuff, ladies, was the awakening. That was when I dove in. I'm like, I was getting triggered left, right, and center. And I knew that, but I had the awareness to say, I need help. Like and it was so uncomfortable. As you said, Brice, it was so uncomfortable for me, because I just built up my coaching business to a point where it was going to explode into such positive stuff. But my awakening was so painful for me. Because betrayal, like being lied to, is the biggest form of betrayal for all of us, I think. But just, I'm such a sensitive person to being lied to. It just hurts me so bad because of my trauma, my childhood stuff, right? Abandonment, being lied to, whatever. And so just really diving into, what does that look like for me? What do I need to do? So I did all the EMDR work. I did like cranial sacral therapy. I had a medium. I had a shaman. I worked with everybody and everything to help my trauma. And there's no more, I'm not repeating the same thing again. Like, when you said that at the beginning there, Catherine, we do this as humans. We keep bringing the same old shit up again and again and again, because we're not doing the work.
Yeah.
We're going to end that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
it's hard, but it's rewarding. It's hard, but it's rewarding.
best gift you can give yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what else? What could be more important to spend time on? You know,
bingo.
Be more important. It is so rewarding, and the great thing is there are so many tools out there, and there's a lot of free resources out there that you can start with as well. So there's something really for every level of issue and budget as well. And I would really encourage people to do that, because when you realize that you know, I did an interview yesterday with Ishmael, and I actually turned the comments off, and I've had quite
I saw that
to me on other things saying, why have you turned the comments off? I said, well, I might share it. Well, I'll share it now. I did it for a couple of reasons. One, because I wanted to protect my energy, because I'm so busy doing some really positive things at the moment. I didn't want to spend a lot of time responding, and I can see how quickly on social media you can get one negative person or troll that can set off a whole cascade of trauma in other people and negative reactions in other people. But also because I wanted people just to choose whether they want to listen or not, because we're so used to going straight into reactive mode and posting a comment. I just don't think it serves people. So it's not it's not censorship, because they can go and talk to whoever they want to about it. But I didn't want loads of projection on there, because exactly this reason, what I was realizing with a lot of the work that I was putting out and others are putting out, is people go straight without engaging any of their emotions.
Yeah.
Who's that?
You hear? I'm in a very haunted house. I will say I'm in a
we have a guest. We have a guest.
We have.
So
yeah, that was funny. But yeah, so that is why that wasn't that weird.
I thought it was me. I'm like, I'm not going to say it.
I know, that was really weird.
I mean, Steph and I are going to do a video over her house. They've had ghost hunters here, all that kind of stuff. This is a very haunted house. So if something weird happens, it might be from my end. So,
I was saying to you guys before we started calling, also my Zoom camera keeps flashing at me as if it's like a speed camera. And I'm like, go away, whoever's
just
watching.
Wave, say, well, I look cute.
But yeah, no, as I say, going back to that video, it's the first time I've done it, but actually it was great, because one, it really projected my boundaries and my energy. But secondly, I just thought, you know what, I don't want to be hypocritical and encouraging behaviors that I can see are really causing no positive outcome for anyone. And you know, this is the thing, how many times have we all been out for drinks with the girls or something, and someone's having a bad time and it turns into a moaning or bitching session? It can be so easy to be dragged into that, because we all know energy equalizes and vibration, and you can lift, but bring people's vibration down or up. And it's not that you can't ever talk about anything negative, I'm not saying that, but sometimes pausing and thinking, am I listening with respect, and am I listening to get something out of this, or am I listening to criticize, can be really helpful.
Catherine, you can do whatever you want. That is your platform, and you're putting out incredible content with amazing people, and you can do whatever you want. You don't need to justify anything.
No. Oh no, it's not justification. It's really explaining why I want to practice what I'm preaching.
Good. Keep going. I saw that and I was like, good, because I can see that the whole truther world is going absolutely crazy. And everyone, like you said, is jumping. They're being reactive to every little thing. And it's like, you know what? No, I'm putting this up here because I want to help people. That's why we're doing this. We're doing this to help. We're not doing it to shame, ridicule, create more chaos. It's to help. And enough of the noise. I don't want any noise on my page right now. You know, thank you. God bless.
I did the same thing like a few months back. Because I'm so attacked by the Christian community. Yeah. And I know there's good Christians out there, but for a whole, it wasn't constructive criticism. It was telling me I was going to hell. It was name calling. It was abusive. And so I put a comment on my community tab that I was going to disable the comments for a while. I was putting a boundary up, and someone commented and said that I was being a coward and that I was letting them win. And I was like, no, I know I'm not going to hell, but when you have to read through that every single day, it does take your energy. You're only human. And so I put a boundary up, and I said boundary. I block those people too when they leave those comments, but I encourage constructive conversation. But when you start name calling,
yep, same.
That's not okay. And I've said this before, you know, we often criticize the other side of this, right? The people on the other side, because they name call, they call us bigots, they all call us all sorts of names because we disagree with them. We've all seen the memes where when they can't fight back, they just start calling us names. But people in the truther community do that as well.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. I've had to go on a couple times and say, doesn't make us right, because somebody will shame me. And then someone will make a comment back and say, you know, call them names. And I'll actually direct message them sometimes and say, hey, you know what, I appreciate you got my back, but let's not name call, because it doesn't make us any better. We just have to take the high road. I tell everybody love and light.
Yeah.
Happy awakening. Hope it's peaceful.
Yes.
Somebody said once, if you just say, I'm sorry you feel that way, and leave it at that, that's the best. I'm sorry you feel that way. And then that's what I do a lot. I'm sorry you feel that way.
And Jesus loves even you.
Jesus, like
that was a good.
I love that one. Jesus loves even you.
That's you know, live there now here in the South. If a woman tells you you're fat, they say you look healthy. Oh, darling, looking healthy. That means you're fat. You gained weight. You need to go get a gym membership. If they call you, bless your heart, you're a dumbass. And if they're really upset with you, they'll say, honey, Jesus loves even you.
I love it. And you know, this is it's so important to have fun. We are all in our own different ways sharing information to try and hope that some of it resonates with someone, and also just doing it for our own benefit as well, you know, being authentic to ourselves. But we've really got to have fun. Even in the darkest times you can have fun. Even in the really good times you can have fun. And I think it's a really important message that everything has got so serious, and my truth's better than your truth, and it's so ridiculous. You know, when we go back to what we're talking about here, be skeptical and learn to listen. Being skeptical you can do from a place of your heart, from a place of respect, from a place of kindness. And every word is a spell. Every word. And we will hear it differently based on the emotions that we're feeling that day, not necessarily based on what it was put out to. And I think when we realize that every single word, every bit of research we do, every podcast we listen to, every news we listen to, every interaction with friends, everything is spell casting. It's all, and spell casting can be really good, can be positive, or it can be negative, but none of it is an absolute truth. And one of the things I love that this said, I'd love to hear how this resonates for you, because you've both given good examples when you've got those voices and a call to action, is the truth does not need explaining. You just know it.
That's exactly how I feel right now. It's like we've been saying from the very beginning of all of this. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you know, you know. And there's been many opportunities or times where I could be proven wrong, or in the way I see this. Can't. It's so obvious to me. Like that's where we keep discussing, like it's frustrating because I'm like, how does my family not see this? How do they not see this? It's right in front of their eyes. It's right in front. They're not hiding it anymore.
Yeah.
So
well, I think that again, Jamie, I think, and I know even before, I think I'm a firm believer that a really good tool of self-work is exercise.
Yeah.
You know, I think because any type of exercise, whether you're an athlete or you're just brings you to a place of being uncomfortable. So it pulls you into your body and make you present with your body. And a lot of athletes I know are very grounded people. And so I think even before you were intentionally doing self-work, you were already doing self-work.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
that's true. I never really saw it that way.
I mean, when I started going to India, I believed everything I had been told before, but it's like, you know, with yoga, the whole thing is to see the truth through the illusion. And there are a lot of people in the yoga world that are completely dead asleep. And I want to be like, what have you been doing all these years on your mat to not see this, to not see the illusion? Because when you understand, it all starts with a micro. So in order for you to understand the truth of the macro, you have to understand your own truth too. You see the own truth through your own illusion, which is the ego and the yoga practice. But once you break through that and you work on that, that's when it's easy to see out the macro as well. And so there's a lot of people in the spiritual community who have been doing the motions, but not actually doing the work. And it shows now because they're requiring this. Actually, every single yoga studio in Atlanta, Georgia that has required this is now going out of business at this point. So if that's not a lesson from the universe, I don't know what is. Shops that are doing that. Like, it's like, where has your work been? What have you been doing all these years if you're not seeing the truth or the illusion? And so it's almost like the universe, but then again, we also have to understand that somebody else's path is none of our business.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting is, like, you're talking about, you made me think of something when you were just saying all that the sport I was in, look at the corruption I was involved in. Right. And that wasn't my first rodeo with, a judging scandal, if you will. It was just so magnified because it was at the Olympic Games, and it was in the US. Right. Yeah. Like big. Yeah. So, I mean, it was a blessing for us that way. But my point here is that I've been around it a lot of my life. And so I could see a lot of, like, I was able to step back and be that observer and see what was going on all around me. So that's why for me, my awakening wasn't so difficult, I think, too. I was already going, well, yeah, I've lived it over here. And yeah, I mean, sorry, you just made me think of a whole lot of things. My brain is like going like this right now, but I just went, well, yeah, I lived in a corrupt sport, but my whole sport world, I guess, is doing this behind my back right now. It seems like the skating world is dead asleep, right?
Girl, same. So same with the yoga world. So I actually just got triggered. We signed on, I was checking my emails, and I had an email from my shala in India. And because I am authorized, I am responsible for writing letters of recommendation for students that want to start the process of going to this school. And I got an email asking if I would fill out a letter of recommendation for a student so that they could, since I'm authorized. And even though there was nothing bad in the email, it triggered me because I've had people like want to cancel me. I'm the only female authorized teacher in the state of Georgia. I'm proud of that. That might be my ego, but it took me a long time to get that authorization. You don't apply for authorization. It's just given to you. So my teacher obviously thought there was something in me that was worth being given the authority to teach this. And I'm the only female in the state of Georgia to be able to do this. And then all of a sudden, because I started to express my concerns about the competition that happened in November of 2020, because I started saying, hey, I think I'm going to vote this particular way, the red team, because he actually seems to give a shit about our country. And I'm not, what the media is saying is not what I'm seeing his actions are. And we're making our economy was never as good as it was under him. Our gas was really low. I mean, it was amazing what was happening. Infrastructure, buildings were being built everywhere in this country during those 4 years. And so logically, critically thinking, I want to continue doing this as an American. We finally have a president that's putting America first. Every leader of every country should put their people first. That's the point. And so, but because I started saying that, all of a sudden I'm labeled a racist, I'm labeled all sorts of things. And I had people petition to try to have my authorization revoked from me. But yeah, I'm the Nazi.
Yeah. Well, I worked at Special Olympics for 8 years, very closely. I was on the Alberta board. I was on the national board in Canada. I resigned because of corruption. And then within some people there. And then I was given in skating at the Alberta awards night, there was a Special Olympic award for the Special Olympic figure skater. Well, they put my name on it. And I got an email a month or so ago that said that we're taking your name off of that award because I'm speaking up, and I remember even in the beginning when these things were being administered to the Special Olympic athletes, there were some of the first ones to get it. I was very vocal and I said, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And I got completely,
Yeah, I think we've all
been fighting for those guys.
We've all done it. Yeah. I mean, most holistic health therapy and healing sanctuaries around here are exactly the same. But I think this is the thing is you do really see through. In one way, this has been such a blessing, hasn't it, to really bring this up to the forefront, because you know, so many people. I was speaking to a wonderful lady in Australia today, and both her and her husband are out of work now, and you know, going to have to sell their house because both of their jobs required it, and they both said no. So the struggle, well, not, you know, is really real for so many different people, but the when you're authentic to yourself, the strength that gives you to do it. And how could you not sit there and say something? You know, how could you still you know, go into the corruption? But one of the things I wanted to say about that, Jamie, is so many people criticize people because, oh, they must be bad because they've worked for this place before. But like, I wouldn't have known how corrupt the public sector was had I not worked for them as a while. So sometimes this is part of life lessons, and we all have to go through. And like you were saying earlier, Brice, you can't learn someone's lesson for them, which is not, particularly when you're a parent or you've got friends you love and things, but it's not our job to learn them for them. And the other thing I think that we were saying, which for me is really important, is a lot of the unawake people are really happy. You know, they talk about if only they, the unawake, would change, this would all stop. And it's never about someone else, is it? At the end of the day, it's not about them, because they're not necessarily low in the vibration if they're going around their life quite happily.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Like I said to you before we started, that some of my families just like, they've said, I just want to live my life, and they're traveling, they're doing their thing, and they're just living as happy as they can. They're also expressing to me that they are feeling something. They feel energetically, even like my brother was even telling me how it's like everyone's just grouchy and everyone's yelling at everyone's this. There is something going on energetically globally. People are feeling it. They don't necessarily know what it is. So I try to share with him, and they still don't want to hear it.
No.
It's but it's almost like, you know, it's so funny. Like I'm here at Stephanie's house and she has a teenager, and he cracks me up. He's the funniest kid. But you'll tell him something and he'll be like teenager rebellion, but then we'll come back later and he's doing it anyway. You know, like it's almost like people are listening, and then because their pride is so big, they'll go home and start researching. Well, can I share, Catherine? Is it possible? Because I know I promote this book a lot on my channel, but if this is resonating with people, what we're saying, and you want to start to do the self-work, and you're not 100% aware of what that even looks like, there's a great body called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And this is one of my favorite books when it comes to going through the chakra system. And she does a really thorough job explaining where triggers come from and where that energetic hold is located within your body. And so it's something easy it's an easy read. It's not, she doesn't talk over you. I hate when people write books and they talk over their reader, but and she has even some exercises in there too. And a lot of times, you know, I talked about the people getting to delirium a little bit, where they're following everybody and everybody's talking to some off-worlder and everybody's doing this and everybody's an actor with a mask on, and it's getting into this derangement. And I'm not saying that's not true to an extent, but we also have to have, again, that skepticism, listen, but have that skepticism. And so what people are forgetting to do, they're going up into their upper chakras, especially this one, the third eye, but they're forgetting about the wounds that are in their lower chakras. And that's where most of the wounds are first, second, and third chakra. And that's why people carry a lot of weight around their lower belly. And those are your and Magdalene says that a lot in her gospel. You have to descend before you can ascend. You have to get back into your body. You have to get back to and a lot of this too, like the first chakra, Muladhara, and the third chakra, Manipura, are really about you. Like Manipura is your power. Muladhara is your right to be here on this earth. And so many people don't feel like they're enough. They don't feel like they have a right to have an opinion and a right to stand in their sovereignty. And that's really what this Great Awakening really is about, in my opinion. It's not about the competitions. It's not about medicine. It's not about any of this. This is just fluff. This is just symptoms of a greater thing. And the greater thing is your sovereignty and being able to stand on your own 2 feet and know who you are as a person and whatever journey that looks like for you to get there. But this is a great book to read to kind of help you for everyone. This is resonating with people, to help them understand. And no, I don't get a kickback from this book.
Right.
In comparison to they get started. No, I don't know this author. I don't know anything about the woman who wrote the book. It's just a really good book. I've read it multiple times. I recommend it to my students. I've done training courses with it. It's just a really good book. And no, again, I don't get any kickbacks from this book. So if this is something y'all are interested in, if this is resonating, if you feel yourself saying, oh, that's me, I find myself following these fantasies. Well, first of all, that's escapism. You're escaping something that you don't want to sit in. And second of all, once you start to sit into yourself and do that work, things are going to look clearer for you. It'll be uncomfortable. You're going to cry. You might have to throw. That's common, having to throw up, as Jamie said. That's where you might have physical reactions to your.
I did. Yeah.
But some people have to go the other way.
And physical pain, like chronic back pain. I had my shoulders have been kind of achy. Then I think, like, am I carrying the weight of the world? Like, what's going on? No, because you're healing.
It has to come up. It has to come up and out. Everything that we say and speak, it then transfers into our physicality, because the body, your beautiful body, is your GPS system. All your body wants to do is to show you where you need to realign yourself. And excuse me, someone doesn't want me saying this. The minute you realign yourself, the more you're going to start to stand in your own power. And the more you stand in you settle into who you are as a person, you find that right to be here, the right to have your own opinions. And you don't have, it's a great place to start with that self-healing. And it's what I'm looking on Amazon. It's like $13.
They have an audio book too, which is great. So you can listen to it in the car or when you're working out, whatever. Yeah.
I love the audio books. And also Fifth Agreement is also on Audible books as well, so I find really, really helpful, because there's so many nuggets in there. Obviously, this book was written a long while ago, and there's so many nuggets. And I'm just going to read it again to finish. Be skeptical, but learn to listen. Don't believe yourself or anybody else. We've had so many discussions here about don't believe everything this is telling you. Use the power of doubt to question everything you hear. Is it really the truth? Listen to the intent behind the words and you'll understand the message. And I think it's so useful that we've done this discussion today, because my biggest sort of closing message to everyone is, if you listen with respect to whoever you're interacting with, I don't mind whether it's the tree, whether it's your dogs, whether it's your loved ones, or whether you're listening to something or yourself, if you just try and bring it back to respect, then you won't take anything personally. You won't make assumptions. You will be impeccable with your work, and you will be doing your best. And that's all we can do, is do our best. And then if we've got guilt or shame, let it go, shake it off like the dogs have just done.
Yeah. Very well said, Catherine. You summed that up perfectly.
Oh,
very good. You're a great host.
These books are so helpful for people, aren't they? And like you were saying, you've read yours multiple times, Brice. I'm going to get that one, because every time I read things like this, I get something different, because I'm different then.
You're different.
And even just a reminder, right? Like, we need these reminders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jamie, have you got new links to share with people about where they can find you and your new platform?
Just the website. Yeah, you can check our website out. We haven't got a lot up yet, but just becoming a member if you want to follow eventually when we get our content going. It's canadiansfortruth.ca.
Well, you
canadiansfortruth.ca.
Yeah. My social media forums
for sure. And I'm going to be doing a couple shows a month. Not right now, we're starting with just a little bit, and I imagine it will grow quite quickly, but we're very excited. I think it will spread like wildfire, even down to the US and to the UK. Like, more and more people will start doing this too. I mean, obviously there's lots of you guys on YouTube, and we need a platform for you guys to all be all of the real ones to be on the same platform, so that the public can see, right? I mean, it's difficult because we can't still be on like mainstream, but that's okay. You know what? We're just going to keep going. We're not quitting. Theo Fleury and I, he's a Stanley Cup champion and Olympic gold medalist. And we both looked at each other the other day, and we're with our team, and everyone's like, well, these two know how to win. And I looked at Theo and I said, it's funny, like, what is it about us that we just, we don't quit? Anyway, it was just, we talked about mindset and how you know, it was like, when you really want something, you don't quit. And right now it's all about, I have this massive, I've always had a very passionate, I've been very passionate about helping people. And, you know, that's why it's so difficult for me, Brice. We've talked about this too. When people are constantly ridiculing me and shaming me, I'm like, I'm coming from love. I'm not doing this to hurt anybody. I want to help people. I want to make them aware, whether you've taken this or not. Like, I don't care. I don't judge you for that, but let's wake everybody up so we can take this tyranny down and this cult.
Yeah. Well, and you know, whenever they react that way to you, Jamie, that's their own hurt showing.
And I know that, but it's like, it's not an excuse. Like, if you're listening, when you feel yourself wanting to react, remember that's your own hurt coming through, and your responsibility is not to hurt other people. So I have to jump off. Yeah, well, this was wonderful. Thank you, Catherine, for the idea, the concept. This was brilliant. So good.
I've loved it. I hope everyone else does. And we will be back for another series soon. I've got a few good ideas I will be discussing with you ladies. So lots of love. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Body Western Mind, before we sign off, the Easter Body, I think Stephanie might be reading that on her channel soon too, guys. So if you can't afford $13, you could just hop over to Stephanie's Spiritual Perspectives of Our Great Awakening. She might be, I'm putting her on the spot. She might be doing
Oh, lovely. Thanks.
Awesome.
Bye.